Stiles escapes the hunt. Liam has an idea, and Scott confronts the evil Nazi werewolf. Hello, entertainment enthusiasts. This is Ray, and this is the Fandom Realm. And today, I am reviewing episode 10 from season 6 of Teen Wolf. This is my number 7 most favorite Teen Wolf episode. As always, there are spoilers involved, so just be aware. Now, first off, before I get started on the review, I do just want to go over a couple things. So if you want to skip, use the time codes and skip on to the beginning of the review. But I've had a couple people ask some questions, and one in particular that I do want to address. One question that I've been asked, some folks have come in my DMs or sent me some emails, is, Ray, why don't you record and do video like the other big review sites do, like Real Rejects or Previewed or anything like that? And my simple response is, at this point, I don't have all the tech needed to do that. That is something that is in my head to try to do in the future. I'm hoping sometime after Christmas, really by the time the Teen Wolf movie comes out, I'm really hoping to be able to be adding video into these reviews. The second thing that actually goes along with that is that people who are doing those type of sites like Real Rejects, like Previewed, they are having all kinds of trouble with YouTube and what YouTube is allowing and not, and copyright strikes and things like that. And I really don't want to have to handle all of those. And so that is basically where we're at right now. One thing I have been trying to do, though, is go through and sort of change up what I'm doing on the videos that I am putting out. And hopefully, as you're following along, you've seen some changes. And I may go back and forth. It just depends on how many pictures I can get and different things like that. So be patient, keep watching. We're going to get there hopefully eventually. And now for the review of Riders on the Storm. Now, I'm going to tell you, I'm doing something a little bit different today for Riders on the Storm because I've picked out basically either 12 scenes or 12 plot points, 12 things that are happening in this episode, and I've got a picture or two to go along with those, and that's how I'm going to go through and review this episode. I'm not going to review and then react at the end like I have been. I'm going to talk about whatever the point is, give my reaction, give my thoughts, then move on to the second point. So it's not going to be divided up like some of the previous videos were. Now, before I end the video, I am going to give you my overall general thought of why I chose this in my top 10. Okay, to start out my review, I'm going to go to number 1, and that is basically the starting of the episode when we're going to see Liam at the school. He has found part of the train station that has come into the school, and he sees that the next stop is Beacon Hills. Now, on the other side of that sign, basically, we have Stiles, and Stiles is also looking at it. He sees the departure times. He's going to recognize that his dad is actually there at the train station as well. They're going to have a nice reunion, and his dad is going to tell him, hey, go, get out of here. Stiles hears Lydia calling for him, remembering him. There's light, sort of like a portal has opened up that he could go through. And a Ghostrider does show up, and Sheriff Stilinski is going to work on him, but Stiles is going to go to the light. He keeps moving in. He hears Lydia's voice, and it looks like he goes in. Then we see Lydia on the other side, along with Scott and Malia. They're standing there, and Stiles never shows up. Now, this was a great opening, I thought, for Teen Wolf. They do openings and cold openings extremely well. And just the fact that we got to see Stiles back with his dad, that was a little emotional for some people I know. And also this idea that Lydia has remembered him. They've been basically a thing, whether they're dating or not, the entire run of Teen Wolf. I mean, yes, he was seeing Malia for a while, and that's just the way it was. But they still had that bond. Now, moving on to number 2, Liam runs to find Scott to show him the leave times for the trains, and that Beacon Hills is up next, and they're going to run into evil Nazi werewolf who has perished under his control. Basically, they're going to throw some threats back and forth, and as Evil Nazi Werewolf. Yes, I know his name is Douglas, but I'm going to call him Evil Nazi Werewolf. When they are ready to fight, Stiles is going to show up behind him and hits him in the head with a pipe. He's going to run and hug Scott, and we have the scene that everyone was waiting on the entire season to see them reunited. It was really cute and sweet, and Stiles is also going to hug Liam, and then Liam's going to point out that, hey, Parrish is still trying to attack us, and they all run away as Parrish throws fire at them. As they are running through the halls of the school, Stiles is going to be complaining to Scott that, hey, he's been gone for a few days, and all hell breaks loose. Scott's going to point out to him that he's been gone for 3 months, and that doesn't go over too well with Stiles, but they're having to face an enemy, so he is going to go into one of the labs. So he gets a canister of liquid nitrogen, and he's going to go, and they're going to confront Parrish. Parrish attacks, and they're going to go and basically attack Parrish, and they're going to hold him down, and while he's flaming up, Stiles is going to hit him with the liquid nitrogen. That's when they are going to learn from Parrish that you can't stop the train, but you can divert it. Now, this, again, something in the episode I really liked. Everybody was waiting for this Scott and Stiles reunification, and I thought they may have made it a little bit more emotional, but the time that they brought it in here, they really didn't have time to be any more emotional. So I thought they did a really good job of that here. I also like Liam. We saw in the first couple of points here that Liam was involved. I like how they've kept Liam involved throughout this season and throughout all of Teen Wolf. Now, moving on to number 3. When I talk about 3, I'm talking about Lydia and Malia. They are going to walk around the school, and they end up in what looked maybe like the library, and they find Peter sitting there in a trance, like everybody who's going to the hunt is sitting. And Lydia is going to talk to Malia and convince her that she can actually wake Peter up if she can get him out of the trance. She just needs to make an emotional connection. Now, you got to remember, though, Malia, not a big fan of Peter Hell, and so she is not really going to try very hard to start with. And as Lydia keeps on her and encouraging her, she's finally going to make that connection, and they're going to wake Peter up. While they're trying to figure out what is going on and how to stop people who become scared, Ghostriders start to show up, and Peter's going to fight them. He tells Lydia and Malia to leave. He's not going to really get the best of the Ghostriders too much, especially to start with, and eventually one of the Ghostriders is going to put him in a really bad position. Now, I'm not going to go any more into that one. I may have gone just a little bit farther than I had intended on number 3, but basically with this, Malia and Peter, they needed to do something in the series to get them to make a connection. Malia has been fighting this from the very beginning, and the fact that it was Lydia who was really sort of pushing her and encouraging her, I thought that was a good way of showing their bond. On to number 4, Liam is going to figure out that Corey is important to what is going on. He remembered that Corey had grabbed a Ghostwriter and transported him away, sort of like the Ghostwriters are transporting all the people into the train station before the train is supposed to come and get them. And so Liam is going to decide he has to go into the hunt. And so he's going to rush in the school. He follows a horse's hoof prints that are all decked out in green. And as he goes into the school, he sees a horse, but one of the Ghostwriters comes up behind him. He's going to struggle with him for a couple minutes, and then he's finally going to be saved by Theo, who just shows up out of nowhere. He's going to tackle the Ghostwriter. He's going to end up knocking the Ghostwriter out as Liam jumps onto the horse's back and races off into the hunt. Another scene, another point I'm really high on. I don't know why, but I really like Liam and Theo together. When they were in the same scenes, there was just something about their chemistry. It was almost like, Scott and Stiles are almost like Liam's older good brothers, where Theo is that older sibling who causes some trouble. He's sort of a bad boy, and that's sort of what it reminds me of. Moving on to point number 5, this is going to be Scott and Stiles. They are out of the school. They are following the tracks over to try to find the switch station. That's where they are are going to switch the train from one set of tracks to the other. You just have to pull it down. But guess who is there waiting on them? Mr. Evil Nazi Werewolf himself. And he's really not into playing around. And when they go for the switch, he's going to take his whip out, and as he strikes it, he catches Stiles' wrist, and with that, he's going to give it a flip, and Stiles bursts into green air, and we don't know where he goes. He pulls his gun out, shoots Scott, same thing happens. We don't really get a good idea of where they got sent. They didn't get sent back into the hunt. Not a lot to say on this not a lot to say on this piece here. Just Scott and Stiles working together. I never get tired of that. There was some banter that I really enjoyed from them as well. Now, number 6, this is going to be Peter, Malia, and Lydia, and they are fighting that Ghostriders that are coming into the area. Really, Peter started off not very good. Basically, he was sort of clawing at the Ghostриder, and it wasn't doing anything. It wasn't really making contact. It was like the Ghostrider was in a different realm. Eventually, it's going to turn out that he's going to sort of figure out he's going to be a little more effective, and what ends up happening is one of the Ghostriders gets him by the neck and holds him up in the air, and he's struggling. He had told Malia and Lydia to run, and as they are running, Malia's going to stop, and she goes back, turns all were-coyote-ish, and goes back to help save Peter. Not really much more to say on this other than what I said about the Peter, Malia, and Lydia point earlier. I like this whole relationship, especially between Malia and Lydia, and then this idea that Malia is trying to sort of figure out what she wants to do with Peter. Now, point number 7. Liam actually gets into the hunt. He rides his horse in. He is going to be coming in. People are going to get scared because they hear the horse. You're going to get to see Hayden and Mason as the horse walks up. They eventually realize that it's not a Ghostwriter and that it is Liam, and he rushes over and gives Hayden a big kiss. Of course, they are boyfriend and girlfriend, and they're going to try to figure out where is Corey. Now, they're eventually going to realize that the voice that keeps giving the time until the train leaves is Corey's voice. Mason's going to figure that out. They trace the wires and everything back into a room, and there they find poor Corey just hooked up to all of these wires. How he is still alive, who knows? But they've just stuck wires in him, and they're all connected to him, and it's like he's controlling everything. And Mason goes to pull some of the wires out to stop it. He thinks maybe that will stop the hunt and maybe stop everything else. Corey won't be in pain, and Liam stops him, basically telling him, hey, we've got to wait until Scott gets the train switched over. And looking at this point, I really like this idea, Liam taking charge. Liam was featured a lot in this episode, and I think that was really important for Teen Wolf. It was sort of building what he should have become in the future if the series would have continued past season 6. And so also just the idea of sort of Mason and Corey, they have a pretty good relationship, and I like the fact, Mason is really out there trying to save Corey from being in pain, but Corey understands what's being asked of him, and he basically tells Mason to wait as well. I like that they had them communicate in that way. Okay, number 8 is short but sweet, and that is a scene with Melissa and Argent. You're going to have a little situation here where they're going to be together, and of course Argent has just taken a gun from one of the Ghostriders, and he is going to shoot one, and then there's going to be another one come in, and they're going to do an old Western type showdown, and they face each other, they draw, Argent shoots the Ghostwriter, he disappears, he gets a huge kiss from Melissa, and that's over. This was basically just confirming Argent and Melissa getting together, and at least for the series partially. I'm really interested to see when we get into the Teen Wolf movie if they have done anything else with Melissa and Argent, or sort of what's going on with that. Now, number 9. This is very important. We're going to actually see Lydia come back into the story after Stiles and Scott got thrown back into the school. Stiles is going to be separated. and he's in a room, and the Ghostwriter comes in with his gun, and Stiles doesn't really see anything he can do. And as the Ghostwriter is holding that gun to Stiles' head, and he sort of leans into him and closes his eyes, the door is going to get blasted off its hinges, and the Ghostwriter is going to get thrown against the wall, and Lydia is going to destroy the Ghostwriter with her powers, and she's going to rescue Stiles, and they're going to have a very nice moment. Again, another moment that everybody was waiting for them two to get back together. And as they are leaving, there's going to be a little problem, because somewhere in the hunt, we hear a voice. It's the voice of Claudia Stilinski, Stiles' mom. And we actually get to see a representation of her, somebody actually looking like a human. But it is very heavily insinuated that it is a Ghostwriter that is actually taking her form. And that is revealed to us. But Stiles is sort of just obsessed with what he's seeing. You know, he lost his mom when he was younger. And, you know, just seeing her, hearing her voice, it's hard for him to do anything. And that Ghostwriter / his mom was quite powerful, because just a bullet wasn't going to really do anything to her. Actually, we're going to see Stilinski come up, and he is going to help Stiles sort of out of the trance that he's pretty much in at that point. And Lydia is going to do her thing with her voice waves, and that sort of stuns the Ghostwriter, and Stilinski's going to shoot it. And so that gets rid of another Ghostwriter. Loved the Lydia and Stiles reunion. The fake Claudia Stilinski with Stiles, sort of heartbreaking, just to be honest. You know, it sort of makes you have a little tear in your eye, maybe, just because the fact that is something that he would have absolutely loved, and they had to sort of get him out of it. Now, I'm going to be honest, guys, I actually just missed something, and I had a number 12. I don't have a number 12 anymore, because I just included it all in Stiles and Lydia and Lydia's mom and the Ghostwriter. So we only have 2 more things to go. Number 10, our final showdown, and I thought this was an incredible scene. I love the scene. Basically what happens here is Scott is going to come up, and he is going to try to switch that train over. And for the moment, he was by himself, and he's going to face evil Nazi werewolf, and all these Ghostriders are coming his way. And evil Nazi werewolf tells him, hey, you're just outnumbered. Scott sort of, does what Scott does, and he's trying to do what's right. And Nazi werewolf points out he doesn't have a pack, and then the pack shows up. So we have Theo showing up first, then Malia sort of comes around him, and she's not real big into Theo helping. And then last one in is Peter, and basically Peter says, hey, I'm not a part of your pack, but he wants to kill Ghostriders. So they're good to go. So there's going to be a big fight, huge fight. Everything's going on, everybody's fighting, Ghostriders are flying every which way but loose, and eventually Malia is going to end up with one of the Ghostriders' whips. She tosses it to Scott. Scott uses the whip to grab a hold of the lever where they're going to switch over the train. He pulls it just before the train gets there, and it's going to go speeding off in a different direction. After that, evil Nazi werewolf, not a happy camper. He is going to order the Ghostriders to kill Scott and the rest of them. The Ghostriders sort of stood there for a couple minutes, then they turned around to leave. He is going to get very evil towards them. He's going to basically say, hey, I am your leader. I am your boss. You have to do what I say. They're going to turn around. They're going to come back to him and surround him. And that's when they start to turn him into a Ghostwriter. And Peter says the Ghostriders have no leader. They're all equal. And basically this is what they were telling evil Nazi werewolf is, hey, we're all equal. We're going to make you one of us. And so with that, the storm ceases, and we get to see Beacon Hills back to normal. It's sort of like some type of spell was lifted, because everybody comes back into their life basically where they were, people in school, and they don't have any memory of what happened. Now, with that, I love the showdown. I love the pack moment for Theo, Malia, and Peter. Of course, 2 of those 3 people have not in the past been all that much of the good guy with Scott. And so they're going to come in, they're going to fight. I love that. Scott actually, once the train is done, is going to let out a roar, and that's when they actually pulled the plug on Corey, and everything ended. And so that's when everything went back to normal. And so Corey was very important to everything that was taking place. Now, number 11, final thing here, and that is, I'm going to call it the end, okay? And what happens here, everybody starts to go their separate ways. Of course, we know that Stiles and Scott are going off to college in different areas. Stiles is going to leave his baseball bat to Liam, or actually to Mason, because he knows Mason is going to be basically Liam's Stiles. And so with that, they're going to head on out, Hayden and Mason and Liam. That leaves Stiles and Scott heading over to Stiles' Jeep. Lydia's going to basically give Stiles a ride to where he's going, to George Washington. That's where he's going to college. He has gotten in. We also find out that Scott has gotten into UC Davis. And with that, Stiles is going to hand over his keys, not just his Jeep keys, but all of the keys that he has to everything in town. I think he had something to pretty much everywhere in town. Vet's office, sheriff's office, Scott's room, you name it, he had a key to it. And so they're going to end up getting in the Jeep, driving down the road, and they basically hear Stiles' scanner that's in his Jeep says that there's a body. His dad is telling another cop somewhere that there's been a body found. And so with that, it seems like they're going to go get involved. Now, I've got several things to say on this one. The Scott-Stiles moments, Scott and Stiles together, when they have moments, those are just some of the best moments in the entire show. I mean, you can go back all 100 episodes, and probably top 15 moments in the entire show, a majority of those are Scott and Stiles, something going on with those two. And so when they were talking, when Stiles was giving Scott his Jeep, when he was going through the keys, he's been telling Scott that everybody around them, they're not ready, they still need them. You can sort of tell they don't want to leave. And you know, the scene that got them into, the scene that got everything started for point number 11 is the bell ringing and school ending. And of course, Stiles has barely even been there all year. And so with that, this was really meant to bring everything to a close. And to be quite frankly honest with you, while I love the fact that they brought back season 6, I'm going to call it B. 6B was maybe the worst season of Teen Wolf. And I would have almost preferred Riders on the Storm to have been the final episode of the series. I know they had their contract. They knew what they wanted to do. I just love the way this episode would have finished the series, and it left plenty of room and opening to come back at a further date, put some type of movie like they're doing now, or just do something to add to the Teen Wolf canon. All right, everybody, with that, I think it's pretty obvious why this goes in at number 7 on my countdown of top 10 Teen Wolf episodes. And I really enjoyed this episode. Again, nothing I can think of right off that I didn't really like. The only thing I even partially rolled my eyes at was Liam jumping off of that balcony on a horse's back. That's just crazy. It happens in all kinds of things, though. We see it with cowboys jumping on a horse's back. It doesn't work like that. But that is being super picky. Pretty much everything else, I really enjoyed what they did in this episode. And as I've said before, from this episode all the way to number 1, a lot of those episodes changed. I think at one point I had this episode up at like number 3 or 4, and it dropped to number 7. So with that, just lots of good episodes left. So keep listening when we put these out. We're going all the way up to the week of the Teen Wolf movie release. And so with that, please subscribe to the channel, like the video, and comment below. And I'll see you next time on the Fandom Realm.